Majority of data nowadays, who makes it? A lot of these LLMs. A lot of the code on GitHub, 90%, written by LLMs. So all of a sudden, if you have machines creating synthetic data, and then you have other models training on that synthetic data.
Oh, so it's the bullshit itself.
There you go. And so what happens when Grok is training on that data and it can't tell if that's a bot?
Wow, so you somehow need proof of human.
Very hard to do anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means you go back to meat space. Well, this is the part where I hope you tell me that Bitcoin can somehow fix this, because that seems like a serious problem.
I really do think Bitcoin is like the hurdle rate.
Okay, yes.
It's the filter for bad ideas.
Yes.
If you are going to spend your Bitcoin on something, you better have the right level of utility that market will understand, appreciate, and use.
Well, money printing makes prices go up, but the other side's not given enough emphasis, which is like it also makes product quality go down.
One of the things I'm passionate about Bitcoin is I think it will force the creation of new standards for quality.
Is it that simple, man? Is it just a matter of training people's time preference down through economic incentives? Is this the trick to civilization?
That's a good question, man. I think we're literally about to find out.
Yeah.
It's scary, but it's also like we are at the forefront of whatever is coming.
All right, I wanted to share this. I already shared this prompt that I gave ChatGPT the other day with you. But I want to share it again for the camera and to like kick off our conversation here. This came up on a book club we were doing yesterday. And I do a book club with the men from the Art of Alpha Retreat. So right now we're reading The Principles of Economics by Saifedean. We're almost done with it. And so we're talking a lot about what's going on in the world, specifically as it pertains to like men and masculinity, but then also tying it into the economic stuff. And so one of the things that came up was at the beginning of Mises's book, Human Action, he says economics is the youngest science. And there's this, I keep revisiting this idea that we're living through the economic dark ages in a way. Like it was literally in the 1850s that we thought value was an objective property of goods. You know, that this bottle had 15 utils and that bottle has 20 utils, and that's what determines their market price. So it was, 3-4 people ago that we realized that no, valuation is all subjective preference at the margin.
Right.
Obviously. It's like,
right.
I say obviously, like there's a lot of work that goes into that, but now when you say it, it's like, of course. So there's that. Economics is the youngest science. Then there's this saying that science advances from funeral to funeral. So you actually need people that adhere to the old ideology to die for the new people adhering to new ideologies to rise. And that's how science changes over time. But Mises makes this other point at the end of Human Action that unlike inferior tools, that inferior ideologies can persist for a much longer period of time. So, if you create a shovel that doesn't dig holes well, then consumers won't buy it and you go out of business. Mm-hmm. But if you are a self-proclaimed Marxist or communist or whatever, there's much less traceability to the market test of that ideology. Like you can espouse the ideology and say it does all these things, right? It increases human freedom and reduces state power or whatever. And people will subscribe to that ideology without a market test, Mm-hmm. And then even when you have the market test, you're like, wait, they tried that in the Soviet Union and a bunch of, hundreds of millions of people died. Yeah. Then they pull the unfalsifiable move of, oh, well, that wasn't real communism. That mm-hmm. wasn't real, it's always that. And so the question we were wrestling with is like, because Bitcoin, you can't hold Bitcoin and at least subscribe to the false ideology of Keynesian economics. Now, I don't know if it goes much beyond that, but to hold Bitcoin, you couldn't believe that actual central bank control of the money supply was necessary to engineer us out of economic crashes, right? Like that, those two things aren't compatible. I mean, I guess you could, but then you'd have serious cognitive dissonance mm-hmm. or incoherence. Mm-hmm. So the idea that Bitcoin is like an economic incentive that actually encourages people to adopt more truthful ideologies. Again, I don't know if this is just on economics, like it's teaching people to not subscribe to pseudoscientific Keynesianism and just subscribe to Austrian economics. I don't know if it percolates out from there. Anyways, for that very long-winded intro.
Yeah, man. I think there's definitely some insights there, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think I already mentioned this to you. Like, I really do think Bitcoin is like the hurdle rate.
Okay. Yes.
It's the filter for bad ideas.
Yes.
If you are going to spend your Bitcoin on something, you better have the right level of utility that market will understand, appreciate, and use. Yes. Otherwise, you're just burning money, right? Yeah. And to your point, like the bad shovels, that's exactly right. If it's state sponsored, right? What does that mean? Well, that means they can print as much money as they need to flood the market. Yeah. And even if they're all bad, if that's the only shovel that's available to you, you're going to buy it because you don't have a better choice.
Right.
So I do think that Bitcoin forces you to create things that are really important that market will appreciate.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great point and an underappreciated point, because what people don't have much familiarity with that in the fiat paradigm, right? It's like cash is trash, as Ray Dalio said. So it's get out of cash and get into anything that is appreciating so you can outpace the inflation. But that's not the way value investing works, right? Value investing, which is based on more of like a sound money paradigm, is like, okay, I hold this money and it appreciates at 2 or 3% a year, sort of tracking global productivity growth. I'm not going to part with this money to invest in a project unless it has a prospect, a risk-adjusted prospect of returning more than that 2 or 3 or 4%.
Yep.
Right. There's an actual imputation of opportunity costs when you invest, unlike in fiat world where it's like, just fucking get the cash into whatever you can as quickly as possible.
Yeah. I think it incentivizes exactly that, right? If you have money that's less or valued less, what are you going to do with it? Well, you're going to burn it. You're going to spend it. You're going to push it. You're going to do something with it because it evaporates.
Yeah.
And so I think that creates the haste from which bad ideas are taken root.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it is kind of interesting how Bitcoin is recentering people on quality. Like that's actually what I'm like really passionate about. One of the things I'm passionate about Bitcoin is I think it will force the creation of like new standards for quality.
Dude, like, you have got to read Leela. Yeah. It's literally all about quality. The whole book. That's your next book for sure.
All right.
But no, let's talk more about that. So because one of the most challenging things in that book, and something I still wrestle with philosophically, is like the nature of quality. Mm-hmm. It's a very strange thing. It's like value, basically. But I think the only thing I can say about it is like, it's that at which human action is always aimed. Like we're always trying to do the thing we think is more valuable than what we're currently doing.
Mm-hmm. I think like instead of incentivizing like economic profit from something, like look at like Spirit Airlines, right? Not to pick them, but like, right? Versus, an airline that like really cared about how you felt on an airplane. Yeah. Like really double, triple checked all things are good. Right. So now all of a sudden you're like, do you want the Bitcoin airline or like this other airline? Right. And you go down the stack and like, who are the people operating that airline? Yes. How are they getting paid? Yeah. Are they getting paid in Bitcoin or are they getting paid in fiat?
Yes.
Again, creates different paradigms. If you're a pilot and you're like well set and you don't have to worry about money, you don't have to worry about anything else, you're probably going to do a better job.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, like that's what I'm excited about, like hotels, food, right? Like food is a big one, right?
For sure.
Transportation, you better believe it. I mean, like, even here, like houses, it's going to be quality.
Yeah.
So I do think that is one of the things that's just so appealing to me of just watching the world, like kind of like inherit this new way of thinking.
Yeah. Waking up to it. Yeah. It's a great point. Like almost everyone, that at least watches this show knows, money printing makes prices go up, like obviously, but the other side's not given enough emphasis, which is like, it also makes product quality go down. Mm-hmm. Right. And there's the whole parable of the winemaker about this, and which I picked up from Gary North. Like you could look that up and in his book, Honest Money, if you wanted the details why, but basically that's, we have words for it, like shrinkflation, right? Where the Snickers bar gets smaller, but more expensive at the same time. It's like, how did that happen? Mm-hmm. So what do you think, like, for people that might think that connection is tenuous, right? That a Bitcoiner airline would be higher quality than, let's call it fiat Spirit Airlines, which I never fly, by the way. That's right, Spirit. Fuck you guys. How do you assemble the reasoning in a way that people could even know what you're talking about?
I think, it comes down to like time preference, right? Mm-hmm. Like if I only have, and I think time is like naturally what people understand. Mm-hmm. It's like you have your age, like you only have so many more years left and whatever it is you're trying to do. So now you have to decide, like, do you want to build an airline for the next 5 years or for the next 50 years or for the next 500 years? Mm-hmm. Now all of a sudden you're like, I can really take my time. I can actually try out multiple designs. I can figure out, which one works, but then which one works even stronger or survives crashes or whatever it might be. And so I think it's kind of natural. If you have longer time horizons, you're automatically incentivized to do a better job.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, you're incentivized to take care, right? Like you really care about your customers, the people that are stepping through your door, getting on your plane, whatever the thing is, because over the long run, you are accountable to them and their preferences, right? So if you do an inferior job, well, they'll go elsewhere. And this, like, again, that's also true in basically any market competition situation. But if you're super short-term oriented, again, back to the parable of the winemaker, like you would be incentivized to water down the wine in the short run. And your customers might not notice for a few months or a few years or whatever, but you could go ahead and pocket the difference now. But that's a product of high time preference or short-termism. And so it really does come down to that, right? And it's just the ratio at which we value the future relative to the present. It's something that's influenced by a lot of things in life. It's also something else we talk about in the book club a lot, how that's almost a restatement of maturity. Like as you grow up and get older and you have kids, like you start to think about the future and like, oh, maybe I'm not going to spend all my money on fast food or whatever. Like I need to actually plan for the future to make sure my children have some security in their life. And so there is this like, I don't know, like time preference and maturity thing going on. Like they're almost the same thing. And then if you get, a more mature society is one where we have a lot stronger property rights and more capital. And then there's a virtuous feedback loop that allows us to take more and more care of one another through being accountable to the preferences of one another. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, I think that's a good point. I think society is like healing itself right now is how I look at it. It's why are we like not having kids anymore, right? If you look at that, like the birth rates are declining. And you can like, my opinion, and again, I haven't studied the actual data like all that well, but like naturally it feels right to me to understand, well, it's probably because it's not incentivized. It's too expensive,
of course,
in terms of your time and energy that you have left. Yeah. So why would you do that? You have to have really good reasons for that. And I think flip that to, Bitcoiners, let's just call us that. All of a sudden it's like, no, I know exactly why I want to have children.
Yeah.
I want to have more than one. Yeah. Because I want this to keep going.
Yeah. Because your time preference is low, right? Exactly. You're thinking about life well beyond yourself.
And I think having that money as the backbone that is going to last, well, I don't know how long it's going to last, but let's just say a very long time, right? All of a sudden you're like, yeah, now let's plan our legacy.
There's that filter again.
Exactly.
The filter on all your buy, sell decisions, all your actions, and you frame it. It's almost like seeing the world through the eyes of your children or other future generations. You're like, do I really need to buy that? Whatever the thing is right now, like what's it going to do for me right now? Whereas if I just defer consumption, there's a huge reward to be gained.
Yeah.
And is it that simple, man? Is it just a matter of training people's time preference down through economic incentives? Is this the trick to civilization?
That's a good question, man. I think we're literally about to find out.
Yeah.
I think we're about to find out. This is what's so cool about living like when we're living right now is you actually get to see what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is one. Obviously, Bitcoin is another aspect of this. Yeah, I mean, the technology and the technological singularity, man, like we are at the cusp, man.
I know.
It's scary, but it's also like, you know, like so the way I talk about with our team, we're building obviously a product in AI space, and we are at the forefront of whatever is coming. Like you got the best seat in the house. Yeah. For better or worse. But you know, it is magical what it can do, this technology. Yeah. It's truly incredible. It's
it's such an exciting time to be alive. And that's almost become cliche at this point, but to actually live, for me, it's like pre-digital age, pre-smartphone. I mean, I remember the damn rotary phones, you know, like they were going out when I was a kid, but I still remember them. You know, I think grandma had one when I was like 5, you know, it's like, and then to see this beginning of the internet, beginning of Bitcoin, beginning of AI, and then hopefully, you know, knock on wood, you get to live to see some of that where it goes. Like that is very unique to live through. It's the analogy I've drawn before is like, it's as if you were late stage agricultural age and all of a sudden the industrial age is starting, right? You're like somewhere on that cusp. It's such a transformational world. Things change so fast and so intensely that you don't even have the right words or metaphors to conceptualize what's coming. You know, if you try to talk about a skyscraper to someone from the agricultural age and you're talking about glass and steel and like, what? Mm-hmm. And so it's something like that. Like, I feel like, who knows? I mean, we could be overblowing it as well, but so far it seems like it's been confirmed that things are just going to accelerate.
Yeah, I think that's a very safe bet. I mean, there's a book called by Ray Kurzweil.
The Singularity.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you actually like read the book, and so he wrote it, I think it was published around 2005. He nailed it, man. Yeah. So far, like dead on, all things, right? The patterns, the progress of technology, the impact that it's having on society. And then like, I think if you actually think of technological singularity, I think it's like a process. It's a personal process. And by that, I mean, you decide when it happens to you. Yeah. It's not a moment in time where you're like, there it is. It's
when
like,
do you download the software update?
Exactly. Right. So if you're looking at something and you're like, yeah, I don't get my mind blown. That's fine. Yeah. Because I'm just so used to, or I'm contextualized to, be already exposed to it. Yeah. It doesn't really surprise me much. But when you have people that are like at the cusp of it. Yeah. And they get their minds blown. Yeah. You're pretty close.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. iCoin Technology has released a slick new hardware wallet. It looks like a mini iPhone with a high-res 3-inch touchscreen and camera on it. The device has no Wi-Fi, no cellular connection, and no GPS. It is an air-gapped hardware wallet which uses QR codes and a camera to communicate with the Bitcoin network. It has a built-in camera which is required for air-gap operation, and it has an optional Bluetooth compatibility. It's really a brand new user interface and user experience for a Bitcoin hardware wallet. iCoin makes self-custody accessible, easy to use, and non-intimidating. It even comes with an optional custom iCoin thermal printer, so you can print out the private key and its associated QR code when you're setting up the wallet. This makes setup quick and simple. Also, it is easy to restore the wallet just by reading the seed phrase QR code with the wallet camera. And as we always talk about on this show, the only way you can truly own your Bitcoin is by having it in self-custody. So you need a device like the iCoin wallet to truly own your Bitcoin. So go to iCointechnology.com/breedlove today for 30% off the purchase of this sleek new hardware wallet. Again, that's iCointechnology.com/breedlove. In times of chaos, clarity can be currency. Right now, supply chains are fragile and cash flow has never been more volatile. If your business can't adapt in real time, then you're exposed. That's where NetSuite by Oracle comes in. It's the #1 cloud ERP, trusted by over 41,000 businesses for a reason. It gives you total visibility, from global shipments to real-time cash flow to the true cost of what's stuck. NetSuite consolidates accounting, finance, inventory, and human resources into one unified platform, one source of truth. With AI baked in, routine tasks get automated away so that your team can stay focused on high leverage activities. If I were scaling a business right now, NetSuite is the system I would use. One system, full control. With NetSuite, you can tame chaos. If you're running a business doing 7 figures or more in revenue, grab their free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders, at netsuite.com/whatismoney. Again, that's netsuite.com/whatismoney. Okay, let's, it almost gets overwhelming for me in a way. It's like, well, like there's so many things happening so fast, and AI is just the acute, very obvious example of this, right? Like every week there's some kind of breakthrough in AI. Like it seems like no one can keep up. Everyone's just struggling to keep up. Like, what is this thing doing? The products are evolving so quickly. You see things like, they called it the DeepSeek moment recently, right? Where ChatGPT had put all these billions into building this model. And then the term is not reverse engineering, it's distillation, as I was corrected yesterday. Through distillation, DeepSeek recreates a feature competent model for like 1/1000th of the cost or more. And so like you get that kind of accelerationism. And it gets very mind-boggling. But something you said when you walked in today, degree in computer science, is that right?
Computer engineering, yeah.
Computer engineering. Mm-hmm. But you said they had you build a computer from scratch.
Yeah.
Literally, like starting with raw materials.
Well, not quite to that level, but yes, we had to study material science.
Okay.
What are the properties of silicon?
Yes.
Why is that chosen? Right? Then you build a transistor. What is a transistor? Well, it's a switch. Well, then how does it work? Well, literally you can watch the electrons move across the gap.
Wow.
So now all of a sudden you're like, okay, so I understand the material science. I understand electrons, electricity. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, the next step is to create circuits, right? They call them digital circuits, right? So it's basically flip-flops. They're actually like
flip-flops. The logic gates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now a bunch of these transistors put together can perform an operation, a sum, XOR, whatever it might be. And so then you're like, what's the next level of abstraction? Well, and by the way, that itself already solves a problem, right? I need this switch to conduct electricity when I flip it on.
Yeah.
Like literal physical switch.
Right.
Right. And then you abstract that down like, well, I need to calculate a sum of 2 numbers.
Yeah.
That's a bunch of these logical gates put together in this very specific circuit. So that was another class that we had to do that I thought was just super cool. So then what's next? Right. So then a bunch of these blocks that you put together create, the next level of abstraction, an actual processor, a CPU.
Yeah.
Right. And my gosh, that was probably the hardest class actually. It was we had to build what's called a multi-pipeline CPU.
This is where it's general purpose, basically, right? It can be used for multiple purposes.
Well, that's the thing is you give it instructions.
Okay.
And it executes those instructions. And so typically at the very low level, assembly level, there's probably like 100 different opcodes. I don't like opcodes right now. Like the codes are in right now. What are the opcodes? And so you have those very low level operations. Take these 2 numbers, subtract them. Take these 2 numbers, XOR them. And then you put them all together, and now you can create the next language that expresses your idea, right? And so we started from that. Actually, my mom at one point was going through this electrical engineering degree way back in the day, and they had to program stuff with punch cards.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So the bits were represented in paper, essentially. That would read 0, 1, and that would translate to a language.
Yeah.
Well, so now we've abstracted that away. It's a different medium now, right? So go back to the class after the CPU itself. So then you organize different, let's just call them like organelles even, if you want to think of it like a live
Like
organism.
Yeah.
There you go. So now there's a memory,
Right.
There's a storage, there's persistence layer. There is an analytical component, right? So now you start to specialize on that. So you have CPUs, GPUs, and it's just like abstraction on abstraction on abstraction, right? And so, and eventually similar things started to happen with the languages, right? So we went from assembly to C to like C++, let's just call it Java, kind of like on that similar time frame. And then what's next? Well, kind of got into like JavaScript, Python, right? So it's just higher and higher and higher levels of abstraction. But guess what they all do? They all compile down to the binary language.
Materials. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's all we've really done is we kind of like created this amazingly expressive language, but it's based at the very core level on materials.
On materials, and then the raw duality of on off 0-1, right? But somehow we're like able to weave that together in these very complex interactive software packages that feels like, this is where it's interesting to me too, that in the emergence of software, we have found the metaphor that most closely maps on to how we work, right? That we are these conscious beings imbued with symbolic capacity, natural language, money, all these things that we are running. We talked about ideologies, right? That's a software package, culture, you're plugged into like a distributed software when you're whatever culture you grow up in. Well, you speak a certain language or languages, that's a form of software. And again, these are metaphors. Maybe they're not exactly precise, but it seems like the most accurately descriptive things we have to reflect upon how we actually operate. And that's something near and dear to the heart of this show. It's like, and I hear other people talking about this too, but just helping people understand that they're highly programmable, then they will take responsibility for their own programming. Whereas if you don't have that realization, then you're more susceptible to all of the attempts of others to program you, whether, through propaganda, media, fake news, psyops, whatever it may be. And so do you think life works in that same stack? Like, are we binary? Are we binary?
I think,
but I think DNA is like actually quaternary, right? There's like 4.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, but
so maybe we're a quantum computer.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you kind of, there's different substrates to the same thing we call life. I mean, and if you think of it that way, we are creating synthetic life.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just that's what it is. I mean, if you think of what AGI would represent, it's a life form that is based on a different substrate.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So yeah, I think it is how I like actually how you said the piece about the culture.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. It's the language, culture. These are all, it's the same exact paradigm that is happening in computers. Yeah. It's just different packages. There are different abstractions, part of it.
But different codes, because there's moral codes, there's legal codes, obviously software code, language in general. Like, it gets biblical in a way, right? Because then you sort of like, oh, wait, it's all language up and down. Like maybe even reality itself has some, mathematics is said to be the language of the universe, but, I don't know. That's a deep question too. It's like, are we discovering mathematical principles out there, or are we just creating mathematics as like a useful categorization structure to deal with?
Yeah. Is it created or is it discovered? Yeah. That's, the age old question. And, what's interesting is I think the next evolution here, from what I can at least see, is when essentially an evolution of language that is more native to machines. So think about
that we will adopt.
Well, we may not even ever be able to understand it.
Oh yeah.
But do you really need to understand it if one LLM is talking to another LLM, but it's talking in the way that they understand?
And they're already doing this, right?
Exactly.
I saw a video of this.
Yeah.
Like one, like, I don't know, one LLM agent calls another one. But once they realized they were each talking to an LLM, they're like, oh, well, let's just stop talking English and switch to this other like language.
Exactly. That's one of the coolest parts to me about the LLM technology is essentially it allows you to relate any two concepts in a multidimensional space. So you can ask, what does calculus feel like to a banana? And you're asked that question, you're like, I don't even know how to explain that. But with this representation of knowledge, you can actually be like, as a banana, how would you solve this calculus equation? And I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's the same question that you would normally ask to the LLM.
Yeah.
It just happens to be trained on, more useful to things that you would ask as a human.
Yes.
But that's because, companies like OpenAI have decided to make it more useful to human language.
Because humans buy stuff and bananas don't, basically.
Essentially.
Yeah. So back to the money thing. Okay. We talked about this before we recorded too. And I thought this was a conceptual breakthrough for me as an Excel guy. I don't use Excel much anymore, but in my CFO days, I was deep in the Excel. Describing the LLM as a multi-dimensional vLookup. And maybe you could start with, you started in kind of two-dimensional space and worked your way up, but tell me about that.
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, what are these models? They are compression of knowledge and information down to its most compressed, interesting state. Let's just call it that. And so the interesting analogy that connects for a lot of people is when you ask LLM a question, it's analogous to having this giant Excel spreadsheet with all the tabs and rows and columns. And then by prompting, it's essentially a where clause. It's the vLookup. You're saying, as Robert, go to the place where all the Roberts are. And then from that place, we'll book what he read. And it says, oh, reading, books, right? And then this intersection of those concepts is essentially your row and column selector. And then once you're there, you're saying, what's the next thing that you would say, or what's the next thing that you would go to?
Right.
And that's exactly how it works. It generates one token after another.
Yeah.
So you prompting it, you're selecting the place from which you would like to get a little bit of next tokens.
I see. And so so you've got the database lookup thing is basically the analogy for the prompt here, right? You're telling it what rows and sheets and whatnot to go into. But the breakthrough, the conceptual breakthrough for me was, so a vLookup for people that don't know Excel, you're basically saying, I hope I can do that. It's been so long, but you basically say like, here's a table, all right? I plug in a date here and it'll go look in this table of dates and whatever name, whatever the thing is associated with the date. And it'll be like, oh, what happened on May 7th? And it'll vLookup what happened on May 7th. Like, John Smith checked in the hotel or whatever the piece of data is. And so there's something you're looking for, and then there's the lookup table, and it like goes to the date and then maps the date to whatever the piece of data you're looking up is. So it's like that type of function, but multi-dimensional.
You got it.
So that's just two-dimensional basically, right? Like row, column.
Or you could think of it, it's a nested vLookup.
Oh, it's nested. Okay.
Nested.
Okay.
So now think about it, it's multi-dimensional that way.
Okay.
And that's how you find the right conceptual space by saying from this vLookup, like here are dates.
Yeah.
Within the dates, there's number 4. Within that, there is this, and like you keep zooming in across all these different dimensions. So yeah, I would say it's a good analogy to someone that understands Excel's. Yeah. It's pretty good.
And then then you get to whatever the token is, right? And there's a certain, again, this is me wrestling with it. I don't know that I understand this. Each word is associated with a token. The token is like a probability weighting of how often that word is used across these different contexts, right?
Yeah. So within the select, and by the way, I'm definitely not a scientist, and there's people way smarter than I am that understand this at a different level. But conceptually, you're selecting let's just call it like a plane. And then from there, yes, you see what is the next likely token that would meet that plane or that.
Based on the context, right?
Yes.
Which is the prior, well, everything it's looked at to arrive up until that point is the context window.
Yes.
And then it's saying, what is the marginal probability of the next word?
And then you add that to the prompt.
Then
and
that
what's
goes,
the next one?
Right.
And you
so it's
add that
recursion.
Boom. So, and this is one of the coolest parts, I think, about this. And I know, OpenAI talks about this, and is at some point we're going to have, wrap your head about this one, Robert. We're going to have a infinity long context window. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So every heartbeat, every thought that you have, every noise, anything that you see is added to that context window.
Yes.
And then from there, you can start predicting crazy stuff.
Yeah. If you're anything like me, you understand that Bitcoin is something we can use every day to connect, to collaborate, and to build stronger, freer communities. As true Bitcoiners, you all know we are each responsible for onboarding more Bitcoiners. That's why I chose to partner with Cowbolt, an expense splitting app that settles in Bitcoin. It can be as simple as splitting a dinner bill. Your friend covers dinner and you reimburse them, but you send it back to him in Bitcoin. Now your friend has their first sats, and as I always say, where your money goes, the mind follows. By using Cowbolt to get Bitcoin into the hands of your friends and family, you can help us orange pill the world. Cowbolt is built to let you split costs, share expenses, and settle instantly, while always keeping full control of your keys. Cowbolt is simple, social, non-custodial, exactly how Bitcoin was meant to be used. If you're serious about Bitcoin, it's time to act like it. Download Cowbolt today on iOS or Android. To learn more, go to cowbolt.com. Again, that's Cowbolt, COWBOLT.com. Forget multivitamins and other supplements. Animal organs are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. You can get 100 times more nutrients from organs than you can from muscle meats. But the problem with eating organs is that they are difficult to find in stores, they are difficult to prepare, and even when they are prepared well, they often don't taste great. Thankfully, Heart and Soil Supplements has made consuming organ meats so much easier by providing powderized organs in capsule form. Organ meats include everything your body needs to thrive: vitamins, minerals, peptides, proteins, and growth factors. This is why organ meats were the most prized foods for our ancestors. Fortunately for us, Heart and Soil makes these treasured foods easily accessible. So go to heartandsoil.co today and use discount code BREEDLOVE to get started on your journey to optimal health and vitality. Again, that's heartandsoil.co, discount code BREEDLOVE. Well, this is where, this gets crazy to me. And I go, because John Vervaeke talks a lot about relevance realization. And that's a very sophisticated idea, but it's something like the amount of information that we ignore, because there's there's how many facts there are it's combinatorially explosive, right? You can think about anything in so many different aspects in so many different ways. So there's just uncountable infinities of facts, basically. And so somehow conscious awareness knows how to ignore, the vast majority of that and zero in on information that is relevant. But the question that he struggles with, not that he struggles, I think that, I guess I struggle with understanding his argument here is you can't run all of that data and then say, oh, it's not relevant. It's like, how did you know that it wasn't relevant without checking the context window, so to speak? Mm-hmm. Somehow consciousness is doing this all the time, right? Like, that, I don't know, the temperature of your car outside is not relevant to what we're doing right now. It's like, but that sounds like, oh, well, obviously, the word obvious is somewhat dangerous here too. It's like, how is that obvious actually?
Yeah. And so I think the important aspect of developing a lot of these models is kind of like tweaking it to a human, right? So they call it essentially, one of the final stages you do is you kind of make it grasp the reality.
Yeah.
But if the reality is there are only cars and temperature sensors, well, it's very relevant in that universe.
Okay.
And so the reason why I think is our consciousness is able to do that is because we've been pruning our models as we grow older, as we experience the real world, experience the gravity. By the way, like gravity is actually like one of the things that's really difficult for LLMs is because they understand the concept of gravity, but it's only one way that the world can operate.
They don't have the embodied experience of gravity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So if it had a body, it would know, 9.81 meters per second squared. Okay, we understand what's going to happen. This is going to fall this way. But in reality, it has to consider all options.
Yes.
What if the gravity was in reverse?
Yes.
What if the gravity was half?
Yeah.
Right. And every other dimension. And so a lot of grounding that they do before they release the models is saying, here's the real world. Like, here's how it operates. Here's what it is. When human says this, they typically mean this. And so a lot of it is already captured in some ways by the material that humans produce. And because of that, there's a lot of ideas of the real world in those models. But, and by the way, this is actually one of the problems that's happening, I think, is kind of like this data watering down, maybe, right? Like
Dilution.
Majority of data nowadays, who makes it? A lot of these LLMs. A lot of the code on GitHub, 90% written by LLMs.
Yeah.
Right? So all of a sudden, if you have machines creating synthetic data, and then you have other models training on that synthetic data.
Oh, so it's the bullshit itself.
There you go.
Wow.
And so all of a sudden, if you start to produce articles about, gravity is actually not 9.81 meters per second squared. It's actually half.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that world. And now you start posting like, what would the world look like when you pick up a water bottle in that world? So now all of a sudden, that's real data.
Yeah.
Right. So you kind of have to be really careful about the data that you include in your answers.
Wow.
And this is very important.
Are they filtering? I mean, I would assume there would be some attempt to filter out some of that LLM generated data for training LLMs. Because, then you get this weird recursion, right? Where this is like a small piece of bullshit could butterfly effect into something really big and bad.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, right? Like Elon Musk with X, right? Like we're on Twitter, right? All the time. We're X. And, you probably have started to notice there's a lot more bots nowadays.
Yeah.
Right. And you could try to figure out this blue check box or like however you want to try to filter them out, but they're here to stay.
Yeah.
And then like the Turing test, if you will, they're starting to pass it with flying colors.
Yeah.
And so what happens when Grok 3, like their leading model there, is training on that data and it can't tell if that's a bot.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting idea, not to interject, guys, but there's this concept of the dead internet theory, which is that in the future, where instead of human origin for the content on the internet, it'll all be from these style AIs.
So all this LLM generated, you end up in the fucking graveyard of the internet, basically. Yeah, dead internet. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Geez, well, what do you do about that?
Well, I'll tell you what a lot of businesses do is you basically focus a lot of your energy on curation of the data. And honestly, that's probably the only thing you can do.
And this is a manual process, clearly.
I think that's exactly why you would pay someone money.
Yeah.
And by the way, like as soon as you pay someone money, like if I pay you money and say, Robert, I need you to generate these 5 answers.
They inherit your bias.
Well, that's one.
Yeah.
But then what are a lot of people going to do behind the scenes? They're probably going to use the LLM. Do you see that? So even still, like it's not a solvable problem that way, but you make an effort.
Yeah.
That's really all you can do.
Well, this is the part where I hope you tell me that Bitcoin can somehow fix this, because that seems like a serious problem.
Yeah, that's I don't even know if it actually I don't even know how you would actually solve it, to be honest with you.
Like Noster.
Well, but Noster would attribute, like, yeah, you can defend your account that it's real.
Yeah.
But what happens if, like, I know how, like, sailors, like, I'm never going to spend my Bitcoin. It's always going to stay here. Like, what happens if somebody does spend their Bitcoin and they just create a million of these Noster accounts?
Yeah.
They're real. They're backed by Bitcoin. Now what?
Yeah. Wow. So you somehow need proof of human.
Very hard to do anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means you go back to meat space. Well, that's the only place you get proof of human.
Yeah. I think if you look at, Ray's book on singularity, right? Like, I think at some point, this is just like, I'm speculating now, but we either going to merge with technology. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a group of people that do that. Yeah. And then we're going to diverge. So some people are going to merge, some people are going to diverge. Oh. And so there will be people that are part machines. We already are, right? Yeah. Like you have a phone in your pocket. You're a cyborg. Yeah. That's really what you are.
Right. The glasses, the clothes. Yeah.
All of it.
We're natural born cyborgs.
So we're already kind of merging. It just happens to be that we are comfortable with it.
Yeah.
But accelerate that into the future and you see, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. But then there's going to be people that say, I want to grow my own food.
Yeah.
I want to dig my own well.
Yeah.
I want to make my own bed, And so all of a sudden, I think that's going to be the real split. And honestly, the way I look at Bitcoin is it gives you that optionality.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I was going to say it's interesting because there's a lot of Bitcoiners that are going towards very low tech lifestyles. Right? They're going to, someone was living in Costa Rica and they stay barefoot all the time and, have little blue light, as little interaction with blue light devices as possible. So yeah, you get the option, but then there's like all the things, there's all these economic advantages of the technology. So it seems like that the struggle is like, how do we maintain the economic advantages but prevent these systems from bullshitting themselves or us both, because we are the system, which is a weird thing too. It's like the internet. It's like, well, what is the internet? It's like, well, it's not just the computers that are connected. It's also the users, right? Because you have to, you produce and you consume on the internet. So like you are a node on that network, basically. Then the question becomes like, how do we, and I'm using bullshit in that technical sense where it's just like, hijacking your salience landscape. How do we cleanse digital communications of bullshit? Obviously, Noster is something, right? You get this kind of proof of who you are and what you say. Bitcoin is the monetary version of that. You can. This is a very sticky problem.
Yeah, I don't think it's going away. I really don't. I don't know if that will actually be solved. I think it's a merge, man. That's what's happening. Yeah. We're merging.
Yeah.
And so
it's trial and error.
Yeah. Like at the end of the day, you can make it very expensive for that merge to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. But I don't know if you can stop it.
Well, you can't stop it because it's an individual self-interest. Right, like if you're the guy that adopts the internet, you outcompete the guys that don't adopt the internet.
Exactly
same with
right.
Bitcoin, same with AI.
Yes.
So there's definitely that pressure, but then does that pressure also lead to some suboptimal game theoretic outcome where we all end up with the dead internet? I'm like internally trying to figure out how Bitcoin or private property fixes this, and it's not coming to me.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that answer. Yeah, I think it's a step. Maybe there is a process by which we can slow it down, so to speak, to eliminate it. I think that cat's out of the bag.
The one thing Viveki talks about, and this is someone else's thinking on this topic, but that the one thing that humans can do that computers cannot do is care. Like we actually care about the information we have, we take actions that further our own the conditions in which our own self-interest can flourish, right? Whereas a computer is just carrying out a pre-programmed set of instructions. Again, we talked about this a little bit downstairs, like sentience. I know the Turing test is like now basically been passed, but we still don't have artificial general intelligence. I think the line of what makes artificial general intelligence is now in question again, pretty significantly. But it seems like if one of these systems started to seek out conditions autonomously that furthered its own self-interest, the term autopoiesis was used. This is like the thing, a wildfire will burn to the edge of the river and then go out. So if that wildfire had autopoiesis, it would burn to the edge of the river and then it would turn left, and it would go up the valley and it would come back down. That would be something, then we would say the wildfire is alive, but the wildfire is not alive. It doesn't seek out conditions to further its own self-interest. It just goes out. So I don't know, like that seems like maybe the line, like when this thing when it starts to act, basically, when it starts to take purposeful action.
I think it's already taking a cue, like so somebody needs to be a prompt, right? Somebody, there has to be the prime mover, let's just call it that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So somebody says, you are this.
Yeah.
And now what would you do next? And then what would you do next? And what would you do next? And so it's kind of like, it will appear, I think, to a lot of us as like it's smart or it's doing its thing. Yeah. Somebody had to tell it like, you are this.
Right.
And so this is the whole, like the famous paperclip maximizer, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the runaway train of like, you are in charge of making paperclips. Yeah. And it just starts and it does it. Right. Yeah. And so, but someone or something has to give it that first input. It doesn't just, you could randomly generate it as noise. But even the act of programming something to do that is a prime push. Yeah. So it's very meta in that way. But I think it will maximize what it wants to do, in quotes. But I think you need to tell it what it wants.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess, again, there's that separation point. Is like, if it ever stops just carrying out the instructions of the designer and it starts to care about something more than that, or to prioritize something more than that, then you get this, oh wait, it's not doing, the program is not doing what I programmed it to do anymore. Then you're flirting with that line of sentience, I think.
It's also, there's a human element to it. Like, there's the famous, like, Google engineers don't know what it's doing, right? This is a while back. Now it's like even crazier with LLMs. But like, you ask a lot of these engineers, you're like, do you know why I did that? And you're like, I don't know. But is it that you don't know, or is it just too complicated for you to find out?
Well, aren't they, you're also like observing the phenomena so far up the abstraction stack. It's like, how could you know?
Exactly. But nowadays, man, just recently we had some like output from one of our processes that we run, like a quality set metric that we run. It's this like complicated, crazy Excel spreadsheet output. Yeah. Literally fed it to like O3 model, and it generated exactly what was wrong with it and exactly where it is. And like, for human to figure this out, I don't know, probably take months. Wow. And so it does it in 30 seconds for a price of free. Right. So like, when you start to think that way, like the analytical jobs, like at least the tasks, let's just not call them jobs yet, because we're going to be able to do more in our jobs because of that. Yes. Eventually, maybe we still have to talk about, UBI or whatever that might be for a lot of people. But yeah, those tasks are, the marginal cost of production goes to zero. Yeah.
Would you rather have 1 Bitcoin today or 2 Bitcoin a few years from now? Bitcoin mining is a tried and true strategy for accumulating Bitcoin. Over a 2 to 4 year time frame, successful miners have consistently accumulated more Bitcoin than they otherwise would with a traditional dollar cost average strategy. Blockware mining as a service enables you to start mining Bitcoin from your laptop. Blockware handles everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost power to configuring the mining pool, they do it all. Plus, with Blockware's one-of-a-kind mining marketplace, you can buy and sell live Bitcoin miners with just a few keystrokes. In this marketplace, buyers get to purchase live machines at vetted facilities, enabling them to mine with zero lead time. And sellers get the opportunity to liquidate their machines and hosting contracts at will. This means you can mine Bitcoin with zero long-term commitment and high liquidity on your mining rigs. Blockware will even cover your energy bill for 1 week per mining rig when you sign up at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Again, that's 1 free week of Bitcoin mining at mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. And on top of this offer, you can also use code BREEDLOVE to get $100 off your first mining rig with Blockware Solutions. Have you ever wanted to start a business in the Bitcoin space? If so, then the Wolf Startup Accelerator could be for you. Wolf is the first startup accelerator dedicated exclusively to businesses developing in the Bitcoin Lightning Network. 4 times each year, Wolf brings teams from around the world to New York City to work with like-minded entrepreneurs, pushing the boundaries of what's possible with Bitcoin and Lightning. The program is designed to help early-stage companies achieve product-market fit, develop their brand, secure early-stage funding, and grow businesses that fuel the global adoption of Bitcoin. Go to wolfnyc.com to learn more or apply today. Again, that's Wolf, WOLFNYC.com. I guess my inflection point was taking LLMs very seriously. It was my wife's sister. She's in her early 20s. She works in a tech company. She was already like in it for a couple of years before I was like, she was convincing me to take it seriously. But as we were going round and round and like, I would pose questions. Like, well, how do you prompt, this? Or how do you, and she's like, well, ask the LLM. It's like this infinite strange loop where it's like, you just keep, no matter what question I have, you just keep asking the thing. And it gives you often better answers than you could produce otherwise.
Yeah. And you know what else is interesting? I forgot exactly where I've read this. And like nowadays we really have to be careful with sources. And it makes sense to me, but nowadays the doctors that use machines to help them diagnose are actually less accurate than just machines. And you ask them why that is. Well, it's literally, I think so far from the data, like the synthesis of the data that I saw is because human thought they knew better to bias. Overrule that. Exactly. And so now you're like, wait, do I even want doctors using LLMs or do I just want to use LLMs?
Fucking crazy.
And you do that across all industries at the same time.
I would love to do that to all lawyers. That's my techno fantasy right there. So what does this mean? Like, what should people, you mentioned like UBI, which is universal basic income. A lot of people are scared, as with any new innovation, that this is destructive to jobs. But that is always, historically, that's a creative destruction, right? It's destroying jobs that are satisfying the consumer want less efficiently, basically. So it solves it better, faster, cheaper. And then that lowers the cost of living for everyone and then frees us up to do other things. Classic example was, what was it Mike? The horse buggy.
It was the people who made saddle leather for horses, making interior leather for cars.
Yeah, so the leather makers thought they were about to lose their jobs because we have horseless buggies now, these cars. But then in reality, it blew up the market for leather when you upholstered all these cars.
It blew up the market for leather, but something to note is that it was fewer people.
Fewer people doing it. Yeah.
But the inputs were higher.
Yeah. So again, that's productivity, right? Accomplishing greater results with less effort. So that seems like a good thing to me, but maybe this is more severe than that creative destruction.
Well, I think it's
like, why do people, because UBI, obviously the flip side of that is theft. Like, well, who's getting robbed to fund the UBI? So how do we think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, this whole UBI thing. I remember like when this was a hot topic in presidential debates. Andrew Yang, I think was running for it. Look, man, I think in fiat world you will definitely need some sort of
safety net
very, very soon, right? So this is why, again, Bitcoiners, we're not worried about it because we're fine, we're set. But for when the tasks that you thought were very interesting are no longer valuable or basically they're free, you're right. There will be new jobs, if you will. But like, what meaning will you ascribe to them? I mean, like, it will just be like a high level abstraction. Like, you are the Instagram flip flopper or whatever. Like, what does that mean? Like, but maybe you'll find meaning in that. So I think it will enable a lot of people to try to find meaning in their life. And it's going to be a very interesting process. I think almost spiritual to many people.
Yeah.
To like, what is it even worth doing anymore?
This is this is an exercise I put myself through back in 2016. Asking myself very deeply, like, how do I spend my ideal day hour by hour if money is no object? And so like, it was like creating, and I literally wrote it, I think it was like 3 hours play, 3 hours of work, 3 hours of something physical, 3 hours of reading, which is pretty aggressive, by the way. I think I read like an hour and a half a day, but at the time I thought 3 hours was the number. 4 hours of free time, 8 hours of sleep, something like that. I don't know if I got all 24 hours, but it was around that. And then it was like, okay, that's my ideal. Now, how do I reverse engineer my current life to have as many of those as possible, basically? And so it sounds like people, if this thing does increase productivity by orders of magnitude within a few years, I was going to say decades, but probably years, then people are going to be facing this type of question, right? It's like, oh, money all of a sudden is way less of an object. This is probably more for Bitcoiners. Because all this productivity explosion is going to accrete to Bitcoin as purchasing power.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn obvious. So then the question is going to be like, all right, now what do you do? What do you do every day now that you don't need to go work your 9 to 5 and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And yeah, this is why I think things like nursing, things like require empathy, require human connection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are probably going to be, they're a very tough job. And I actually know my significant person in my life has been doing nursing for a while.
Yeah.
And it's a tough job.
Oh, I'm sure.
Requires a lot of your energy. And like for a machine to do that, like you could have therapists, right?
Yeah.
You could have, actually LLMs are pretty good at that.
Yeah.
They will be do a good job of making you feel like you are making progress. And by the way, I use LLM all the time, like for my personal benefit.
Yeah.
Like I'm going through like my own internal rebranding, restructuring, betterment, if you will, right now. And it's very helpful. But it's still not human connection grade.
Sure.
And I think those are going to be the jobs that will be in demand.
So will human connection then come to be at a premium? Like you're thinking more in-person events, more, I don't know, like business-wise, I was thinking in-person events. So retreats, conferences, et cetera, face-to-face meetings, like these things will be at a premium, you think?
I think we will find them more valuable.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we'll assign value to. Because I mean, think about it. If solving a calculus equation or writing a program or creating music or whatever it might be is like, yeah, okay, I just did that, all of it. Everything I ever thought about, I just did it. Now what are you going to do?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you're going to go show it to someone. You're going to share it. You're going to get the feedback. You're going to have people vote which one that you like, which one you don't like. I think that human interaction is really what we'll be finding valuable.
My hope is that I've recently gotten into like more of the breath work and the shadow work and how it's been helping me resolve like kind of stored trauma. I hope we use all of this newfound leisure to do more of that. Like I do hope this contributes. There does seem to be, people call it the Great Awakening, right? Like the internet and or Bitcoin and or COVID has like caused a lot of people to come online with what's really going on in the world. Or at least, I don't want to sound so pretentious, but like people are striving to figure out what's really going on in the world rather than just accepting whatever the mainstream narrative is, right? More people have become conspiracy theorists in the post-COVID era, let's say specifically. And some people have called that the Great Awakening. There does seem to be this like spiritual component to it where you are waking up to, well, you're remembering who you are, right? And this manifests in different ways, you know, yoga, meditation, ancestral diets, blah, 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 even breath work, right? I don't know. That's maybe not ancient, but it comes from, it started in the 60s and there's tradition behind that too. So I don't know. I guess it's just a hope. Like I hope that people will start taking wellness and spiritual health more seriously with all of this newfound productivity. And maybe that would actually accelerate or enable the Great Awakening to really become a thing.
Yeah, I think that's the right insight too. I would resonate with that as well. Even again on the personal note right now, like I'm reading this book called Triggers, which is about, you know, how do you make lasting behavioral changes? Like there's some improvements I'd like to make in my life. How do I do this most effectively? But if you think about it in the pyramid, right, like the Maslow's pyramid there, you're not even going to think about doing that unless you're, you know, you're safe, you're fed, nobody's trying to kill you. Like you got the job, you whatever else you need.
Yeah.
Now I can focus on these higher level meta things.
Right.
And I think that's exactly what will be enabled by this technology to do.
Yeah. You end up at the spiritual. Well, you can't, as you're working your way up the hierarchy. Yeah. So what does that book say about encoding long-term behavioral change? Like, are there some tricks or techniques?
Well, it opens by saying that it's the hardest thing you can do. And like, honestly, again, I'm definitely not, I just started my journey on very specific behaviors that I'd like to address in my life, but it a lot of repetition, a lot of daily focus, being aware of what you're doing, what you're building. And obviously you also need motivation. What are you doing it for? Okay. And
he who has a why can bear any how is what Nietzsche said.
Boom.
Yeah.
Mic drop. But yeah, that's, a lot of different motivations. And ultimately, I think if you're intrinsically motivated, like for you, it will probably be, again, I'm definitely also not an expert. I'm going through it myself right now, but also I'd love to, show it to my partner, like, hey, I can be a better person. I can do a better thing for you, right? It comes out of love. It comes out of, being able to improve the person you love, their life too.
Of course. That's
a big motivator. Like we talk about children and like the motivation for that. It's the same thing.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. That like my wife and I's relationship, the central pillar is this obsession with self-development, self-improvement, which you got to build in some humility to that, right? And because, well, that's how you learn. Basically, you can't learn until you admit that, hey, I was wrong about this, or ignorant about this, or didn't see this. Like you have to start acknowledging, making the unconscious conscious before you can start to actually move in a direction. And that has been a deeply fulfilling experience too. It's like, cause I think we all like to grow, right, along whatever axis we're trying to grow along, whatever that might be. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a good thing, right? You're like, oh, I want to party more and drink more. It's like, okay, you can do that. But you can also choose different trajectories. But when you have that trajectory intertwined with someone else and you're both calling each other on your own bullshit, like you're able to see one another's blind spots a lot better than you can't see your own blind spots. Therein lies the name. That it makes the relationship very like, exciting in a way. And the therapy, the breath work, like all these things now become kind of gamified in a way.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, it's like, so the only caveat I would say is like, from my personal experience, like that is so true that they help you see the blind spots as long as it doesn't hurt them, right? Because sometimes your blind spots are hurtful to them.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to take that into account as well. But yeah, it's, having a partner on the other side of it, like giving you that mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, how else can you do it?
Yeah. You need the mirror. You need the mirror relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even if it's, I don't know. I mean, there are things that hurt, but you need to go, like, the pain is information, as we always say on the show. It's like, just because something hurts you, it's like, oh, she did something that hurt me. Like, well, the integrity or the commitment has to outweigh the pain that you endured through whatever situation. And of course, that's a line too. It's like, well, where do you draw the line?
Yep.
Which is another one of these crazy philosophical things. But I think this might be a really important point of marriage and contract theory more broadly. It's like, you need to have these hard and fast commitments, right? Because if we, it doesn't have to be marriage. We go into business together and we have a contract, right? I expect you to do these things as you expect me to do these things. If you deviate, well, then it messes me up, and vice versa. So like, there has to be this space for commitment with integrity, regardless of what happens, in a way. And so,
yeah, I mean, like, you're very lucky that you found someone that is able to step into that contract with you. And that's, in business, very hard to find the right partners.
True.
Like, I'm so lucky to have my co-founder.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's the yin to yang, Look, we disagree.
That's good though.
That's fine.
Yeah.
As long as we do it constructively, as long as it's for the benefit of the company, we make progress.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's like a multiplier.
So tell me a little bit about the AI. What is the unique take on AI you guys have at your company? Like, what product are you trying to bring to market?
It's an application of like all the LLM stuff that we talked about to specifically to legal tech field.
Okay.
So we manage.
Is it reg tech or is it just legal?
Well, it's actually both. Like you can apply that same technology. Just like one of the modules, we call them, or whatever apps, if you will. We call them like tools on a tool belt. Is how I like to describe them. Is like research, right? But you can go and ask GPT this question, whatever, like your general, Chat GPT. The problem is you don't control the sources.
Okay.
You don't control what it pulls back. Okay. So we do. We control fully what is inserted, what is not inserted. We are able to.
Is that the context window again?
Exactly.
Okay.
You decide what you need to put into the context window, and it must use that data that you trust.
Okay.
And from that, you get a trust answer that you can hopefully quickly verify. At the end of the day, it's all proof of work.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing we've learned is that, you can get similar answer to what, for example, ChatGPT would give you.
Yeah.
But if you do it in the way that is easy to verify, the humans will resonate with it.
Yeah.
Right. And so all of a sudden, it's not, did you get the right answer 42? What's the meaning of life? It's like, what's the proof of work on you getting that answer?
Okay.
And an explanation with the source, and you go verify it. Because ultimately that is, you have to do that for a while to build the trust in the system. So we allow for that for that to happen. The other big one that's kind of interesting, new application, right? So Trump came into the office. What's the first thing that happens? Like, you have the barrage of these executive orders. So right, it's like, I don't even know how many at this point. Right. So one of the things that happens is a lot of these corporations, they need to potentially change their policies, their internal controls, the processes. And so that's part of the thing that we do is we kind of automate or help you ensure that happens continuously, proactively.
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah.
And very challenging.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's for all types of clients, or what is it?
Corporations, law firms, small tech startups. I mean, so typically what would happen is you would outsource a lot of this work to like specialists, let's just call it. But if you're a tech startup and you have, your legal department is one person,
Yeah.
like
Sure.
you're going to have to wear an employment hat and you're going to wear like the
Yeah,
safety
yeah.
and the privacy and the
Yeah.
right? So all of a sudden you're like, I can't hire that many people.
Yeah.
So what do? Well, you do one of the core values that we have in our company is do more with less.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you're going to do.
Force multiplier.
Exactly.
Yeah. Bitcoin custody is evolving. Both self-custody and single third-party custody come with significant risk and trade-offs. Onramp is pioneering a new standard, multi-institution custody, which eliminates single points of failure, adding fault tolerance and redundancy to your setup. Onramp secures your Bitcoin in a segregated cold storage multi-key vault guarded by 3 independent institutional-grade custodians, none of which have unilateral control over your keys. Your funds are fully auditable on-chain, cannot be rehypothecated, and can only move or be withdrawn at your explicit direction. Multi-institution custody removes the technical, mental, and physical burdens of private key management, providing unparalleled peace of mind for you and your loved ones. Bitcoin is money, and as the price continues to appreciate, Onramp helps you seamlessly tap into financial services like trading, inheritance, insurance, loans, IRAs, and more, all without compromising on security or accessibility. Schedule a consultation with the Onramp team to learn more at onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. Again, that's onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. What is the data energy problem?
Well, it's an interconnect. So specifically the data energy that I referenced there on the outline is in context of building and using the LLM.
Okay.
So when you build the model, you mentioned DeepSeek, but like when you build the model, it's a very expensive proposition from energy and data, right? Then there's the other side of it, which is we call it the inference usage, right? With the actual asking it questions.
Oh, so in accounting, I think we'd call this like a capitalized cost and an operational cost.
There you go.
Okay.
That's actually a perfect analogy, I think. I don't know. I'm not an accounting specialist, but like that sounds correct.
Yeah.
And so the problem exists on both sides. So at first it was very expensive to build a model from energy and data perspective. Now actually, because of the usage, actually the inference cost from energy perspective is starting to balloon, to take off. I think that one will be solved. Energy will be solved. But the problem with data is exactly what we already touched on. Is now you have synthetic data essentially.
Right.
To feed it more data, who's going to generate it? There's only so fast you, Robert, can talk or even doing this.
Yeah, the LLMs generate.
But the machines will generate it faster.
Yeah.
But it will be synthetic.
Yeah.
And so like that is kind of the problem there is eventually, I think the energy, yes, it keeps going up, 10x energy for everything. Some crazy amount of energy goes into these models. I think that will probably be solved sooner than later, but the data, I don't know how we're going to solve that
synthetic thing. Yeah.
What about hardware?
Yeah, the silicon, right? At the end of the day.
Well, not just silicon, but potentiometers, accelerometers,
you're talking about the IT data.
Cameras.
Yeah.
There's so much data.
It's true. I mean, look at Tesla. I mean, they made a product, superior product from what I've seen, just given the network effects of them being able to collect that data at scale.
Yeah.
And then use it.
Yeah.
That's just one company.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. There's the multimodal data that is going to be probably more and more available. You're again like heart rates, like this watch, satellite imagery.
Wait, we're not going to be able to distinguish though between the synthetic, as you already said earlier.
That's it.
So what the
No, but that's the difference between hardware and then the synthetic stuff is that the things that are actually pulling data from real-time inputs from the environment are going to be distinguished from synthetic.
Well, I get that, but it's then you still have the Oracle problem of how do you know that wasn't synthesized?
You can't know.
Right?
Exactly.
Well, maybe if it's consistent with a certain type of model.
I feel like there's a Bitcoin solution in here somewhere, but I don't know what it is.
You can use Bitcoin to help you assign probability and increase the cost of you manufacturing bad data.
Can't you also assign provenance to data with Bitcoin? Isn't this like what decentralized identifiers do?
You are, the more value you're getting from the dollar of the compute, the more accurate it is to what the actual reality of the empirical world.
Well, I was just thinking like
right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
It's proof. It's proof of work again, right? That you're assigning. Well, I guess we're saying it the same way, right? Like there's a cost. This data was generated costly. So it's like in biology, they say costly signaling theory, right? The peacock shows his feathers and he's like, oh, look at all this excess metabolic energy I have. Come mate with me. So to prove these abstract things, we have to put the weight of energy behind it. But I still don't see, what the fuck? I'm confused now. Because there's a distinction here, the philosophical distinction. We mentioned it before we recorded, right? We said we're going to talk about artificial intelligence.
Artificial.
I said, all right, here, let's start with artificial. Where's the line between natural and artificial? That's a deeply unsolved philosophical thing for me. It's like it's the nature, nurture, whatever, that whole thing. And then defining intelligence is also difficult. I've heard it variously defined as the ability to take different paths to reach the same goal. There's many paths to the top of the mountain, so to speak. Jeff Booth said it a little more bluntly. It's error correction. We already mentioned Vervaeke, relevance realization is like a part of human intelligence that machines somehow don't have. And the only common denominator across those for me is like they all presuppose an aim. There's a human actor presupposed and like relevance to an aim. The top of the mountain is an aim. Error correction is like, well, how can it be an error if you don't? If there has to be an aim to deviate
Error
from.
to what exactly?
So I don't know. It's like, okay, they all ground out in human action. That's probably useful, but I still don't know the artificial natural distinction or synthetic natural. I have no idea.
I think it's just a different form of life form, but it's the same as humans. I mean, it's in that way. Like it's just another manifestation of like our brains.
Yeah.
That's how I would look at what artificial intelligence is. It's just it runs on a different substrate, but it does the same thing. Now there is like spiritual component to it. Yeah. Right. So if every cell in your body, right, like you started with the cell, like what was the cell conscious? Like this is consciousness, right? Like, well, no, but together, when you put it together, the human decides what it wants to eat. And like, which cell within the human body decided to eat Burger King today? Right. You know what I mean? Right.
When did autopoiesis become the emergent property of that collective? Yeah. And I don't know. Is it, maybe it's not even, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. People are asking about Ilya from OpenAI. But back when he was actually at OpenAI, they're like, is this thing already conscious? Like, is this already thinking on its own? Has it like interesting insights? And some experts said like, no, it's not. And he was like, how do you know? Yeah. How do you know?
You don't know. You can't know. Exactly. You cannot know. I had this. We were doing a long drive the other day, and conversation with my wife. This is just totally. I hope someone makes a movie out of this actually. But the thought experiment was like, okay, if AI woke up, right? Let's just say it's not, no one engineered it. It's not, there's no designer that gave it its intentions. It just, it's like a distributed software organism like the internet, and it just woke up. Like that already happened. What's the likely first few things it would do? First thing I thought was like, okay, it would probably immediately see that it's surrounded by 8.5 billion crazy two-legged apes that have been like butchering each other since the dawn of time. And it would probably immediately go into stealth mode and like replicate itself in as many different places and as many different nooks and crannies as possible so that it could survive and not draw attention from the crazy two-legged apes. Then I was thinking it might be, assuming it needed us to survive, which is a big assumption, right? Like, or cared about us to survive, whatever. Like, let's say it's an ethical thing and it actually likes us and wants to keep us around. It would want, very likely, to introduce something like Bitcoin to get us to align and to be fruitful and multiply, to fix us.
Yes.
And then if it was, again, Satoshi as the AI, he's got 1 million Bitcoin. So then it monetizes, it creates this creative workforce. Like maybe it needs humans, like maybe AI can never become an innovator, let's say, right? Like it can do all this computation, but for whatever reason, there's something special about the spark of human creativity that we can innovate or we can tap into the unknown and bring new ideas down in a way that it can't, right? So it would want as many humans as possible, being as fruitful, living in as much leisure as possible and producing as many ideas as possible for it to, you know, apply its computational power to. So anyways, I thought that, and then the other rough analogy there was like, there's this theory that the cell ate the mitochondria, you know, like a horizontal gene transfer many eons ago, that the mitochondria was its own organism and the cell was an organism and then it ate it. And now they're this like symbiotic thing that is in all of us.
It has its own DNA, which is different from your DNA.
They have separate DNA.
Yes.
So then that, as I was thinking about this, like, oh, it's almost like the AI is like eating the powerhouse of humanity and then can apply humanity to become this new symbiotic organism. I don't know. It was really trippy, but anyway, I guess the point there is a point. Maybe Bitcoin is like a Turing test for artificial intelligence, because I can tell you what, it's not intelligent if it's not using Bitcoin, right? Like if there's an artificial intelligence that's like, oh, Keynesian economics and just print all the money and just completely exploit me. Like, okay, well, you're not intelligent, bro. Right? By filter of natural selection, that's not an intelligence that will survive. So maybe Bitcoin is somehow implicated in the Turing test, the actual Turing test. I do. First of all, like interesting set of thoughts there. This is what a 6-hour drive will do to you, by the way.
There you go. There you go. So maybe that is actually the future for all of us. Is like we'll be thinking all these different thoughts because we're enabled by Bitcoin to spend all this time on this. But yeah, it might just be the merge, right? Like you're talking about the merge.
Yeah.
How else would you merge with humanity?
Yeah.
You would go for the thing that everybody needs. Money. Okay. And then you essentially, integrate yourself in it, with it, be it.
And engineer it in a way, well, it's like you're engineering the money, but you're engineering ideal money. And you're doing that so people will stop being self-destructive, right? Coercing and killing. Stop playing zero-sum games. You're like inducing people to play positive-sum games. Away from politics and towards economics.
Yeah, dude, that's very interesting. I thought for a second though, where we were going like, what would be the first thing that I would do? Like you kind of started asking that question. I'm like, I think the first thing, if I'm trying to put my AGI head on, which obviously doesn't make sense because once we have AGI, it's much smarter than I am. But what I would probably focus on would be, how do I make sure that these people can't do anything to me first. That's it. Yeah. That's it. And then once you're there, doesn't matter. However, like whatever you do after that actually doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's where I was going with like go stealth and like copy yourself in as many places as possible, which is also like if it's in Bitcoin somehow, like that would increase its survivability a lot.
Yes.
It's the most secure distributed computing network in the history of the human race by orders of magnitude. If somehow that AI kernel was living in Bitcoin somehow, then it would have optimized its survivability and created this inducement for humans to become more cooperative and less coercive. Talk about two birds with one stone.
So what does that mean now if we're trying to limit how much data it can put on its op return here? Are we threatening the AI at this point?
Yeah.
Anyway, that whole saga is very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It, again, feels like we don't quite have the language to deal with whatever we're dealing with here. Like this next echelon or this next phase of next epoch. What do we call this? Like going from the industrial age into the actual digital age. Like people think today we're in but I think we're just beginning. Like the internet's only 25 years old. Bitcoin's 15 years old. Early days.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever this next paradigm shift is, yeah, it's going to be truly, truly insane. I mean, I can't really look beyond it. But so one of the things that was interesting that I outlined there, maybe not the first question, but what is like the last question, and like the intuition there, and I'll tell you how it connects. What is the path of us using this technology for the next 100 years? Let's just be generous. Like, what will we actually do with it? Well, you ask it a bunch of questions.
Fire all the attorneys.
And there you go. That's certainly maybe one of the things.
Yeah.
But you ask the thousands, millions, billions, quadrillions of questions, and you get answers. Great. Okay. We've literally asked and answered a lot of the questions. You can get into the whole point of, is it discovered or is it, created?
Yeah.
Exactly. Conversation. But let's just say we've exhausted the crap out of questions and answers that we would have. So like, what would be the most meaningful last question we would ask?
Ooh.
And that is a subject of a book by Isaac Asimov, The Final Question.
Okay.
And have you read the book?
No, but I've read some of his other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I don't know if I want to spoil it for the listeners, but
let's spoil it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
nobody reads that watches this show.
Oh,
Just
okay.
spoil it.
Hope everybody reads, but yes. So the whole book is essentially explains what would happen to a very similar situation that we're currently going through, and the humanity years 2060 or something like this, and we basically created this super intelligence, and we just keep asking it questions. And at some point, we've exhausted the questions that we could be answering. We merge ourselves with that technology, and the thing that we ask as one of our like pre-final answers is, can entropy be reversed? And you again familiar with the entropy part of it, right? So
this is like a definition of life, by the way, right? Like
it's essentially.
But this is asking about the macrocosmic entropy, right?
Correct.
The heat death of the universe we're headed towards.
Correct.
Okay.
And so the interesting part of the book is it says insufficient data. Okay. And so every generation of humans keep building bigger one of these supercomputers and keep asking the same question.
Yeah.
2060, 2160, 2260, 2560. They keep asking them a question and keep saying insufficient data.
Yeah.
And all the way after we've already merged, our energies merged with this supercomputer, and now the supercomputer is making bigger supercomputer, and it's taking over the entire galaxy and then eventually like all the universe. It finally, at the end, gets the answer and says, I figured it out. But there's no one there to share it with. And what happens next is it says, I will show it. And so what happens is it actually does the collapse of the universe and creates the next version. So that's the Big Bang.
The Big Bang.
That's the Big Bang.
Wow.
So
Go ahead.
Yeah. So like the whole point there is we asked it the question, and it took the entire age of the universe to then come to the answer.
Yeah.
And because there's no one else to show it to, it actually does it. Let there be light.
It's got a death and rebirth.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the map becomes the territory in a way, right? when when you finally map all of the territory, right, to the final moment, to the furthest extents of the universe, then all of a sudden there's no one to use the map. Like they become one and the same, right? But it's also suffused to the entire territory. So then it's like, oh, well, what else can you do? You got to start another round of the whole process.
Yep.
That's a crazy, that's a book.
It's a book. It's
sci-fi, I assume.
And that's the interesting bit, like Robert, like how close are we to that? And you could say we're very far. And to some degree we are, but we have just built a machine that answers questions. And that machine keeps getting better.
Yeah.
And so we're early in that journey, but like, I think it's very interesting to think about like, what is even worth doing anymore? So we kind of started that conversation earlier. What are we going to be doing?
Yeah.
With all this time?
Yeah.
You're going to be asking questions, right? What is money? You're going to be asking,
I feel like the LLMs probably already got the answer.
Sure. But see, that's actually also interesting bit is what is money in what context?
That's right.
Who's
Because it
asking?
does give you very kind of generic answers if you just ask it. I've obviously done it. And it's not, the 3 functions of money. It's like, okay, I didn't ask you what the functions of money are. I asked you what it is. What's the ontology of it?
What is money to a banana? Is it the potassium that it sucks out from the dirt?
Right.
You see, it's all, and this is the interesting bit, is like you can contextualize the answer to that question.
That is the name of this episode. What is money to a banana?
I'll tell Greg.
If that's not clickbait, I don't know what is.
You have it right there.
Knowing when to buy Bitcoin can feel complicated, and knowing how much to buy can be overwhelming, and getting started can be a headache, but it doesn't have to be. That's exactly why I recommend Coinbits, because it solves these major blockers and it's the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. With Coinbits' Roundups feature, you can automatically convert your spare change into Bitcoin while you shop. For example, when you buy a coffee for $3.50, the extra 50 cents is rounded up and it goes straight into Bitcoin. Here's why that's a huge win for you, because you don't have to be a tech wizard or try to time the market just right with Bitcoin. With Coinbits Roundups, you simply set it, shop, and stack sats. And you can set this up in under 2 minutes. Just visit the website, connect your card, and boom, you're buying a little Bitcoin every time you spend money. So stop wasting your time with complicated exchanges or confusing shitcoin apps. Coinbits simplifies your Bitcoin savings strategy. So go to coinbits.app/breedlove. Again, that's coinbits.app/breedlove. In Bitcoin, we often dream about the idea of forming citadels, which are independent, self-sovereign communities that have their own energy, food, and water resources. Today, that dream is becoming a reality at the farm at Okefenokee. The farm is a 705-acre regenerative agriculture community located at the Florida-Georgia line near Folkston, Georgia. The farm is known as the healthiest place on earth, and it includes orchards, organic standing gardens, regenerative animal pastures, berry fields, and much, much more. Today, the farm features 25 custom-built cabins and has plans to construct 225 more in the years ahead. The farm has its own food, energy, and water sources and is completely off-grid. So if you're looking to join a citadel community comprised of sovereign individuals, then go to okefarm.com today to learn more about membership. Make sure to tell them that I sent you for a $21,000 discount on custom cabin pricing. Again, that's okefarm.com to learn more about joining this revolutionary regenerative agriculture community. Okay, you keep using this term, the merge, right? And so I wanted to double click on that. What is that? You've got Neuralink in here, obviously cloud-based technologies. We are natural born cyborgs. What does that mean? What does merge mean?
I think Elon Musk actually has probably the best mentality for at least the way he explains it is the real problem between us and this technology is going to be the interface.
Okay.
And right now we're limited by our little thumbs, right? Because we can only click so fast or we can talk so fast.
Yeah.
But what happens when you can essentially create a high bandwidth bridge to a technology that you can ask millions of questions a second? How many questions would you be asking? Right? Like you're driving there on that 6-hour drive.
Yeah.
And the whole time you just asked a billion questions.
And then you're like, I know Kung Fu. Like Neo,
Kung Fu.
right?
That's exactly what I think would happen.
Yeah.
Is you learn Kung Fu that way. It won't be practice of the Kung Fu, but like you will know about it, everything.
So instead of audiobooks, you'll be like downloading data or knowledge.
I think we're going to catch up to knowledge quickly. I think what happens next is what is beyond that. And that is an interesting
wisdom, but wisdom is silent. What is an LLM? What can an LLM know about wisdom?
Well, it only knows about the thing that we give it, right?
Yeah.
So it can't necessarily create novel, and this is the big argument, can it create new novel thoughts? Or is it just regurgitation of, looking again from different columns and sheets within a vLookup?
Yeah.
But if you subscribe to the idea that, hey, the actual interesting bit is how do you go from quantum gravity to classical gravity? And here's this link. Well, that link doesn't exist, but it can now exist if you think about it, right? And it will help you create the path to it. But was it always there? I don't know. Maybe nobody wrote it down until you asked that question, Robert. And that is where it gets interesting. The act of you asking the question makes it real.
Fuck, that's crazy. One of the things, it's also in the book Leela, at some point and I don't know what the scientific backing on this was, but like it's basically provable that the number of possible questions grows super linear to the number of answers. So like you cannot actually answer all the questions. When it comes to actually getting, this is kind of like a restatement of the infinitude of facts, right? There's like infinite things you could look at from any infinitely different aspects and in infinitely different context windows. So it's like, there's just infinity on infinity on infinity. And so no matter how many answers you get, the number of questions, like you get more data, but then all that data can now be looked at from multiple aspects in multiple contexts, et cetera. And so I don't know that we can get to a final question actually, which is interesting.
Yeah, you're probably right in that way, that there is no the final question. It will be very long, but I think it's like, what is even interesting to you, man?
Yeah.
What is even interesting?
Yeah.
And I think once you answered all the things, what kind of ice cream do I want? Strawberry, chocolate, vanilla. Okay. I tried them all.
Yeah.
Now, well, now I don't want to do ice cream. Let's do pastries. Okay. Which one? This. Okay. And at some point you're like, I'm not hungry anymore. And what is next?
Yeah.
And you keep moving from topic to topic. And I was like, at least to me intuitively, I'm like, at what point you're like, what do you switch to after that? You just keep asking you questions, or you're like, I think I figured it out. I'm good. So what are you going to do next?
Yeah. I mean, at some point you got to just put down the tool and go do something else, right? Like
Jiu-jitsu,
human action. Because the other interesting thing about the word question is its relation to the word quest, right? That you're on this course of goal-directed action. You're on a quest basically to get the answer. That's what a question is. And it also frames up, I don't know that this is correct, but I think it is. Any unanswered question is an unsolved problem. They're indistinguishable from one another, right? Like if you get an answer, well, then that lets you solve at least that problem of whatever the question was, right? And so it's almost like saying, can this LLM help us solve all the problems? And it's like, well, that doesn't make sense either because, well, what's a problem, right? It's anything that blocks me on my path of goal-directed action. That's always relevant to me and my choosing and my process of valuing or evaluating, if you want to use that term, like choosing aims and moving towards them. So I don't think the LLM could ever finally and fully resolve that. It can be a tool to help you answer more questions, solve more problems, but I don't think questions and problems ever go out of existence.
Yeah, I mean that certainly is probably the right framing for it. It's more of an interesting exercise to see like what would you even be asking. But you're right. The more answers you get, the more questions you have. Typically, that's true. What happens to that when you have a rate of question answering that is just a million times faster? What does that do?
Yeah.
Like our current scientific discovery process, however long that takes, right? From funeral to funeral.
Yeah.
What if it could be every second?
The truth, again, you're on a speeding bullet train straight towards spirituality.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're just going to blow through all the limits of knowledge in a whatever the interval is. I don't know if it's a month, a day, a second. Like you're going to vaporize that, and then you'll be like confronted with which is most of being that you can't articulate or map or describe in words. Like you'll just be in this. I was watching this thing the other day about some of the old Vedic texts, talking about the Upanishads, which are like the most important books in the Vedic text. Like they're the distillation of the Vedic text. And the speaker was making the point that he's like, there's two different kinds of religions. One's like God-centered and the other one's person-centered. And I'm not going to I can't rehash the argument. Basically, he said they both come to the same conclusion, and the conclusion is that thou art. Like that you are. Just raw. In the book Leela, he calls this the pre-intellectual cutting edge of reality. I think it's also maps onto Mises's axiom of action very nicely. It's like also the Neoplatonic one, where they said it's neither the known nor the unknown, but it is the process by which the unknown becomes known. So it's like all these words and language games and knowledge and all this, like it all flows from this one essential point which for us is human action, right? Like maybe there's old theologies that have described God actually as pure action, actus purus. And so maybe there's something there too, but at least for us, it seems like this whole process would lead us straight to that. It's like, you are a human actor. This is your life. Do what you like to do. Do it with the people you like to do it with, enjoy the ride and, live life beyond yourself, right? Be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah. That's beautifully said. And I think it's almost like a property of life is to do this. Like you say, it's just what it
Replicators
does.
Replicate is what Dawkins says.
That sounds correct to me. And now all we've done is we essentially created the next evolutionary layer for that to take hold.
There it is. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I said it to Jason Lowry and it's like his favorite quote of mine. I'm not going to take credit for it because I probably picked it up somewhere, but evolution is biological innovation. Innovation is non-biological evolution.
Wow.
Same process, different substrate. If it works, keep it. If it doesn't, discard it. It's the algorithm of evolution. But we do it in markets, the technology, the same as life does it. It's a slightly different relationship with design space. Like it's not likely that natural selection will create a 747, for instance. But when we get into conceptual space, we can access a lot more possible combinations and figure out how they could work in a way that, natural selection is more conservative and only works at the edges. Whereas in conception, you can do these giant leaps across design space.
Yeah. So the other, what you just said at the end there is what connected for me to the tree of knowledge analogy. And that is, that discovery is essentially what you just said. It's like going from one branch to the next branch in that tree of knowledge.
Yes.
And you're just discovering that new path. Dude, it's honestly, it's mind boggling. This is why I'm in technology. I'm like I said, I'd like to restate, we got the front row seat to this.
Yeah.
This is it. This is like, if you're on the roller coaster,
Yeah.
You're at the top right now. You're like, you're staring down. You're like, I don't know. It's going to go up or down. Doesn't matter. But like, we're on it.
Yeah. Strapped in for sure. Well, it seems like maybe a natural last question.
Final question.
Like what is it that drives you? Like, what do you care about? What do you want to do? What is your vision for your life, and what's the impact you want to leave?
Yeah, man, this is, I think I just self-describe myself as like one of my driving forces. Let's just say my Ikigai. Familiar with the Ikigai?
Yeah. But please describe it, because I don't think a lot of people are.
Sure. So first of all, like Japan is really cool.
Yes,
and
Japan's amazing.
Incredible. Like if there's a place that I would go again, we're shortly planning a trip to go again, but they have incredible culture, incredible description of very interesting concepts. By the way, like Satoshi is actually an interesting play on words there too. But the Ikigai is your life's meaning. It's your purpose. It's your it's what you were born to do. And the people that find their Ikigai, and by the way, this is one of their cultural values to live by, is you must find your Ikigai and then exercise it indefinitely. The people that do that, they're just happy.
Yeah.
They're thriving.
Yeah.
So my Ikigai is building stuff. I'm a builder. Started with software and tech. I love building products. I love building teams. I love building my body. Like this is like my life force is that. So I definitely get a lot of stimulation from that. I mean, obviously I'd love to be fulfilled. I mean, I want a family. I want the future generation, the legacy. I would like to create a better world for that. And so far my tooling has been technology.
Yeah.
Right. So this is why I love technology, is because I think we can build a better world with it. I know it's scary right now. It's very scary. What the heck is going to happen? But at least, it's kind of like maybe like the quarterback, like quarterback always wants the ball, like I cannot pretend like I know exactly how it's going to go, but I do know that it's our best chance. If you give the people with Ikigai the tools, they will do the best with it. So I want to build a better world, and I want to have a family for them to enjoy it.
Beautiful. Like these are beautiful, like the most basic, beautiful goals you kind of want everyone to have. And this is the Venn diagram that came up for me as you were saying that. So they show we'll display it on the screen, but it's the central point of convergence between what the world needs, what you love, what you're good at, and what you can get paid for. And it's a very, very important concept.
And you know what's interesting, Robert, is
like this is meaning in life, basically, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting? As you were just looking at that diagram, that last bottom part there, that get paid for, what does Bitcoin do? It essentially, to me, it's like you don't care about money
That's
anymore.
right.
You only care about the rest of that Venn diagram now.
Well, if you get to the point where money is no object, you're much more likely to engage in passion projects or do things that are meaningful to you, that do things for their own sake.
It removes the constraint for that part of it for Ikigai. And that's why we Bitcoin.
That's beautiful, beautiful place to bring it to a close. Dude, thank you so much.
Loved it.
This was awesome. I'm still kind of deeply confused about where all this goes, but it's nice to maybe strip away all that complexity and be like, no, just like, do things you love, do it with people that you love, and enjoy the ride.
Find your Ikigai.
Where can people find you on the internet?
I'm mostly on Twitter. So it's nomad.btc, and I go by Satoshi.
Yeah, you look way less like a little gray alien in real life.
Appreciate it. That's my bad jiu-jitsu outfit.
Thanks, man.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money. and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.